Wow. All right, back in Blender. Obviously, the first thing we're gonna do is kill the cube. We kind of started this a little bit on Tuesday, and I went down a separate rabbit trail. I'm gonna go ahead and try the bucket again, this time to show off some modifiers. So I'm gonna go ahead and add, again, a cylinder. And for this guy, I'm going to pull this down to 12. And then we'll deal with the scale of everything, I guess, a little bit later. That's probably fine there. So I've got, in addition to slow computer, I've got a 12-sided cylinder here. I'm going to scale the top one up. So I'm going to hit S, wrong way, about like that. And honestly, all I'm going to keep is one face here. But I want it nicely arranged around this cylinder, this axis in the middle, and I kind of like this being flared out a little wider on the top than it is on the bottom and everything like that. So I'm just going to grab this guy right here. I believe it's Control I. Yep, Control I will give me the inverse of that, and then I will just delete all the other faces. So I'm left with one face. Extrude that guy. Give us a little bit of that plank. So this is not going to be a very watertight bucket. Then I'm going to go hit 2 to get into edge mode, A to select everything, Control B to bevel, and then drag mouse a little bit until something happens. Whoop. It's a hair trigger. All right, something like that. I'm just giving it a little bit of form. So we've got the plank. I'm just going to go ahead and shade auto smooth while we're here. Since I did like only one iteration on that bevel, it's not going to matter too much. Okay, one last thing. Before I get into the array modifier, I'm going to take the whole thing here and just scale it down a little bit so that when I create more of these, I've got some gap in the middle of them. So they all look like separate planks. All right. I'm going to not, at this point, deliberately use Control A to apply the scale so that you can see what that's going to mess up later. But we should probably, at this point, Control A to apply the scale. Because I think it's funny what happens when I don't. I'm not going to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and come over here to my wrench. I'm going to add the modifier array. So it'll be under generate and array. And array does super cool stuff. So we can keep it on fixed count here, and I can just up the count to like, I don't know, whatever. And I've got a crooked fence line or whatever's going on here. And that's moving out at a factor of 1 on the X. I can also say, just move out 2 on the Y. Go 0.5 on the Z and do all of it. And so array just takes what you've got and makes a really cool set of copies according to whatever criteria you give it here. So I'm not going to do relative offset, so I'll turn that off. I'm going to pull the count back down to 2 here for now. And what we want to do is I want to take this plank and rebuild my bucket. So I want 12 of those around this point of origin. So the other reason I started with the cylinder is I still have this point of origin here. This is just a plank off in the center, so that's going to help. And I'm going to, instead of the relative offset, which would just skew them out whichever way, I'm going to use an object offset. And so here's another good example of using an empty. So I'm going to add an empty, and it can be whatever. I kind of like using the sphere. So I've got a sphere here, and this is literally an empty object. It doesn't do anything, but its point of origin and the things I do to the empty are a point of reference that I can use for my array. So I'm going to take my empty here, and I'm going to rotate it. Let me see. I want 12 of these around 360, so I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees on the Z. Okay? And I'm going to use that now as my object reference for my array here. So my array is on my plank. I'm going to use object offset. So we click that on. And then I can either use the dropper to go select the guy, or I can use this and find it from the list, and I've got empty. And so now it made one copy of this because of my count is at 2 and rotated it by 30 degrees around that point. We want a total of 12 of these, so I need 11 extra. Here's the cool thing that happens if I didn't apply my scale. Not a very good bucket, but I don't know, it's a cool like yard decoration. It's art. I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and, so with all this set up, this is actually what we want. I'm going to turn that off really quick. I'm going to come to my plank, Control A. I'm going to apply the scale. And now when I come back here, it's almost what I want. I guess I want a total count of 12. Yeah. Including the original. So now I've got 12 planks. This is almost too perfect. What the array gives us is perfection, according to the math that we fed it. And so then later we would just apply the array and maybe shorten one, lengthen one, rotate one a little bit, put a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. So we've got that. That's just one of the things we can do with array. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply that for now. And then let me get my that here. So I'm just going to select, and I am going to hit 3 to go to faces. I am going to just vary this up a little bit before I move further. So Control L is going to give me all the faces linked to that. And then I will scale on the Z and just make this one a little bit longer. All the faces for each plank. So here's the thing, and why this is kind of cool, and we'll do more with this in a minute, but these are 12 separate objects, right? So if I come in here and I select this, and so I'll just do it this way, right? Everything linked to that face is just that plank, okay? But since I applied or baked the array, it's just one object as far as the hierarchy is concerned, but it's 12 separate pieces. So we kind of got like the best of both worlds here. We'll do some joining and stuff later and take that even further. So I'm just gonna take this one, Control L, and I will just, I don't know, rotate this on its local, do X and X. Just skew it a little bit. Barely noticeable. I'll take this one and I'll just Control plus, just get the top ones, and I'll use the grab on the local Z just to pull that down a little bit. We're just giving it some variance. The other thing we can do, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do what we did with the plate for the donuts. All right, I'm in object mode. Good. It's not going to add to it yet. So I'm going to add a circle. And I'm going to make some bands for this. So yeah, we'll leave it at 32, 1 meter. That's all good. Tab to go to edit mode. 2 for edges, A for everything, E to extrude. And then Z to make sure it only extrudes on the Z. All right, so I'm just going to pull that up, make a bit of a band. And now with just the top edge selected, I'll scale that out. Let me move this down so I can see what it is. I'm just going to move it down on the Z, toward the bottom here. Let me look at some orthographic views. Come on. All right. In object mode, so I'll S to scale the whole thing. So we want it bigger than the exterior. The G and Z to move it up. It's around about there, I think. What else? I'm going to shade auto smooth, and then I'm going to go ahead and add that solidify modifier to this guy. So remember, we just had a circle, so this is just like a one-sided plane. So solidify, which is just going to give that some thickness. And we got it roughly placed. Somehow I accidentally almost got the angle right. We're gonna go with it. All right, I'm just gonna copy this. I'll Shift D, and escape, and then G, and then Z, and I'll move it up. So we'll put it about there-ish. Go back to one of my ortho views, and then S to scale, and we'll just pop this out. So now we've got some bands around the bucket. And you can put bands around the inside. We should probably give it a bottom, or it's just a wooden basketball hoop. Maybe that's what we're going for. Go ahead and I'll add, I guess, just a cylinder, just to cap the bottom. I like it. We'll keep it at 12. It'll match the bottom, and then we'll keep the depth at like point, I don't know, 2. Might be a little thick. 0.05. All right. We'll just pretend we like that. Pull this down. Oh, funny. See, it looks thinner in ortho. So I'm just going to roughly place that somewhere here at the bottom. If you want to add nails or something to make sure that that's in place, that's fine. And I think, should go ahead and, I'm going to bevel that too. So Tab, A, Control B. Just a little bit of a bevel. All right, now I've got circles and circles and cylinders all up through here, but I want all this to be one object. So I'm going to just grab them all. Circle, circle, cylinder, and then just Control J. And that'll join them all as one object. So we get the same effect as we did for all 12 planks. This is just one thing. The modifiers are still, oh, we've still got solidify on. Oh, I wonder what I did. Let me undo that. That might have dorked something. Okay. Let me apply my solidify modifier to my circles first, so that solidify is just not sitting on top of everything. Notice we got the wrench up here, showing us that there's a modifier on this guy. Apply it. Now I'll join them all. So circle, circle, cylinder, cylinder. We'll name something soon. We really will. All right, Control J, join. We've got a bucket. So we should name it. All right, now the fun part. So I'm going to just go ahead and hide our bucket for now. And we're going to look at, I don't even need this guy anymore either. Right? I applied everything. I can just delete him. So we did something with the array modifier. We'll do some more with the array. We're gonna use 3 modifiers for this next thing. We'll use array. We'll use the screw modifier, which we use to kind of loft our bowls and apples and stuff. And then we're going to use a curve modifier. So I'm going to make something probably too high poly right now for our game stuff, right? So I'm going to make a big rope. And so the poly count's going to go ridiculous, but I want to show these modifiers off, and then we can decimate or do something to it later. But this is just too fun to not do. So I'm going to add a circle to begin with. So just add a circle. It's huge, to keep our poly count down. Should we go to 8? Maybe more, we'll go to 12, like we did before. We'll go to 12 on this, and then I'm going to pull my radius way down as well. So, like, I don't know, 0.25, it's still too much. I'm gonna pull my radius way down. We'll scale later. All right, so we've got this little circle. I'm going to first add another array modifier to this. As you can see, it just starts to try to duplicate it that way. So I'm going to do another empty. Almost exactly what we did before. So I'm going to do an empty, and we'll use a sphere again, or whatever. Oh, that sphere is massive. Okay, and I'm going to take my sphere this time, and I'm going to rotate it by 90. Doesn't look like anything happened here, but it did. Okay, now I'm going to take my original circle, which is going to be a rope soon enough. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm just going to move it away from the point of origin. Which is premature. Let me go ahead and go from relative offset back to my object offset. Same thing. I'm going to use the empty. And the empty's been rotated by 90. All right, now if I pull this guy out on the object offset, you can see it's taking my duplicate and just moving it along the other axis. So it's rotating it out 90 degrees from the point of origin. So I got this guy. Yeah, he's really close to the other one. We could have him touching. Again, this is going to be too high poly really to use, so we'll have to fix it later, but it's fun. All right, so we got that. I'm going to go ahead and up the count to 4. And now I've got 4 circles. Fun, right? Now I'm going to add the screw modifier to this. I'm going to go and just going to apply this array. Now this is just who this guy is. I don't need this guy anymore because I applied it. I applied the array modifier. My circle is now 4 circles. I'll add the screw modifier. We'll see what the screw modifier should have been doing all along. So we go up by like 1 meter. I know, we basically got a pretzel or a Twizzler or something. So we've taken our 4 circles, gone up by a full 360 along that length, and you can change that. If that's too tight, then we can go longer, kind of like that. Nowhere to scale this down. So if that's 1.5 meters tall, then these are like, this is like how you tie up your pirate ship. It's a massive rope, but we're gonna leave that on. Okay, so we've got our rope. I'm gonna tab back into. Well, I shouldn't have applied the array modifier yet. Nah, we're gonna go with it. We'll see what it turns out. All right. So I've got this. I'm going to add one more modifier to this. I'm going to leave the screw modifier on in case I need to make some adjustments to that. I'm going to add, it's under deform, a curve modifier. Didn't look like it did anything. It didn't yet. We didn't give it a curve. Okay, now here's the crazy stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a totally separate curve. I'll just add a Bezier curve here. He's just hanging out. And I'm going to do kind of like we did with the last curves. And I'm going to go to an ortho view here. And I'm going to hit tab. And I'm going to draw. Not annotate, but draw. Okay, and I'm going to ignore the points of the curve that's already there. And I'm just going to draw With my little pencil here. Oh, the lag is fantastic. It's a nice big loop here. And then we'll come down. And we'll loop back in and make it look like a rope. All right. That's here. We like it. I'm going to grab these points of the original curve and delete them. So now this is my curve, this little loopy boy. All right, let's go back to my rope, which is called circle. I'm going to leave the screw modifier alone for now, and I'm going to tell it what its curve is. So curve object is the Bezier curve. And immediately it starts trying to follow that loop. We want it to deform. Let's make sure. Here we go. If we go along the z-axis, then it's going to follow that better. There we go. And it's going to as many vertices as it's got to work with. That's what it'll use to bend. And then the length that it's got to work with is what it's going to use. So I'm going to come up to my screw modifier up here and just start upping the iterations. We'll just keep going. And then if I go beyond the length of that now, it'll just start shooting straight off in whatever direction. So, where were we? So at 14, it comes right up here. At 15, it actually kind of loops in on itself, which might cause problems later. We'll leave it at 14. So there we go. We took our Twizzler rope and extruded it all along this curve. So the curve modifier can be really cool. We can do this with a cylinder. It doesn't have to be this ridiculously high poly rope as long as the cylinder's got enough vertices on it. Who did the, I'm not going to get the name right, the snake-looking dragon Pokemon? Yes, Dratini. Who did that one? Someone who's not in class today? Okay. I don't know what they did, but this would have been a cool way to like do a snake or anything coiled up, cords. But yeah, so we've got this, so we can either bake this and let this be our rope. We can adjust the length here. And so if we want a tighter rope, then we can come back down. But that's going to affect how many iterations we need. So it's at 1.5. I'm going to come down to like 1.2 is pretty tight. Let's go 3, 4. We'll go to 1.3 and then we'll add an iteration. Or 2. There we go. Now once you got the way you like it, bear in mind this is now a lot of polys. And then we've also got this to deal with. So let's just look at that. So the steps that we gave it affect how many polys it's going to do. It was at 16. Let me just pull this back to 8. 8's still nice. We can see some sharp edges. It's a little chunky, but we probably saved a good half of whatever nonsense was there. I'll leave it at 10. We've got our rope. I'm going to go ahead and apply that modifier. I'll apply this modifier, and we're going to go ahead and name this. No, we don't even need to name it. I'm going to add it to the bucket. So, ridiculously high polyed. Also, let me go backwards a couple steps. One thing I didn't check was, is this thing inside out? So let me look at my face orientation. It's totally inside out. No big deal. We can flip that right here in the screw modifier for normals. So if I can get my mouse to hover there, we go flip. Now it's proper, and we'll apply that. hide my bucket. Yes, I have too much rope. Turn that off. Scale the rope down until it kind of sort of works. And you can add some handles, you can add some holes for the rope to go through. I mean, there's more detail we can do here for sure. But for now, I'm just roughing the shape. It seems to be hitting right between the planks. I'm going to go ahead and rotate on Z. So it's at least going into some of the planks. Then I can go through and I can add holes to those planks that it's tapping through later or not. Yeah, look at that. It looks good, but the poly count's ridiculous. So it looks good though. So where's my stats? Yeah, we are at 7,000 faces just for the rope. Definitely not something we want to put 10 of these into a game level. So we'll use this sparingly, or we won't do as much rope, or do a shorter amount of rope, just do a rope handle on your barrels, whatever. But it's a cool thing we can do. So I wanted to make sure that we knew what arrays and the curve modifier and all that could do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab, let's see if I start with the circle. I'm going to grab the bucket. I'm going to again control J. And now that's all one object with a total of 8,000 faces. I can delete this curve. So now we made a bucket. It still needs textures. Oof. Let's see, auto smooth. That rope looks rough already. Weird. Oh, is it just fully shade smooth? I'll bet that's it. Yeah. So the rope itself was shade smooth and looked better. But now that it's part of the bucket, we've got to choose one or the other, either auto smooth or smooth. So the rope is a cool thing you can do. Is it optimized for what we're trying to make? No. We can try to fix that, but I just wanted to make sure that we knew what we could do with these modifiers. Let me step back a couple of steps here. This is not joined, so I'm going to take my circle, call it rope. I'm going to leave it separate for now and hide it. And let's just see if we can find something better to extrude along that Bezier curve. We'll make, I don't know, we'll make a cylinder, I guess. Keep it chunky, we'll make it 8 around. Depth-wise, gosh, we'll start with 8 meters. That's what we need. Pull the radius down. More like 20. See if I can wrap this around the same curve. When you're creating your cylinder, you can get rid of that N-gon. So the cap type is set to N-gon by default. So it's just the one face with a whole bunch of squares around it, or a whole bunch of vertices around it. Or you can say no cap at all, or a triangle fan, which is going to give us all like the pizza slices on top. With N-gon still, let me see if this will even do anything before I add cuts to it. So I'm going to take my cylinder. I'll add the curve modifier. I'll bet it's not going to want to do a thing because it doesn't have any cuts. Curve object, Bezier. Yeah, It just started at a point and said, here's as much as I can do for you. All right, so I'm gonna go back into edit mode. You're still gonna end up with a lot of polys if you're trying to follow that curve. So I'm gonna go ahead and select, let me give the edge rings, and we're gonna cut those like a lot. So subdivide that by, I don't know, 100. Thanks for getting in my way. There we go. We'll do by 100. Huh. And I don't know why it started up here in the middle. That's so weird. And so it took what I had, starts to follow the curve, and then took the excess off, like we saw before. But I don't know why it started on that particular edge, on this part of the curve. So weird. Anyway, those are things we can do with the curve modifier and the array modifier. Let me squirrel once more. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. We'll call it bucket 2. It's already did one. And we'll just play a little bit more with the array modifier. Start with this cube, and I will just add the modifier and then make an empty really quick. So we'll add the array, so generate an array. First thing it wants to do is use the fixed count relative offset, and it's just going by 1. So great if you want to make a fence. Constant offset, do a bunch more math in there. Similar to the relative offset. I'm going to keep going with object offset. So I'll make another empty. It could be anything we want. We'll make an empty cube. And this time, I'm really going to mess with it. So I'm going to rotate, I don't know, just 10 degrees. And we'll move it up by 1. And then I'm going to scale it. Bigger. All right, now using this weird empty, some crazy things we can do. So object, we use the empty. So it rotates a bit, it moves up a bit, and it scales a bit. But if I keep going up with the count, yeah. So every time I up the iterations, I can get that. So I've actually seen this used like for really cool buildings and stuff. We'll do some buildings later on. And so they scaled it the other way. So we had a big base, and then like a copy of it was up here, and it was scaled down a little bit, and then another copy, and it was scaled down a little bit, and had like this cool like spire effect going on, which we accidentally did backwards here. But yeah, lots of cool things you can do with the array modifier, which kind of reinforces one of our rules, which is don't model the whole thing. Think about, I need this part, and then if you need a bunch of those parts, then use the array modifier. So kind of like we did with, I just need one plank. I modeled one plank that I was kind of angled the way I wanted it, and then I used the array modifier, and then got all 12 of them and recreated a bucket. So fun things we can do. Just wanted to point out those modifiers. I don't know where else array is going to help. Maybe if you're building each side of your barrels, but for the most part, we're doing some blocky objects that are pretty simple this week. So anyway, it'll be helpful for your bucket. have fun making all of those things. And I'm tired of watching my mouse move really slow, so I'm going to stop the recording.